Okay, welcome everybody to the AeroGear community meeting, Monday the 11th of June. This is our first meeting, so feel free to ask questions, give feedback, etc. Just a quick intro into what we're going to do. So basically on screen you can see this Trello board, a little bit empty at the moment as it's brand new, but hopefully we'll get some nice content in there. There is a welcome card here which basically explains how the board works. So any community member can add an item for discussion to the new items here. And then we'll do a vote on items. So again, people can vote for things that they want to see discussed, and the items that are getting the highest votes then will go into the agenda.next column. So we didn't get a huge amount of voting in advance of this meeting, but hopefully as we progress with these meetings every week, there will be a little bit more in advance. So I'll just give a couple of minutes if people want to read through the ones that are sitting there or add new items. If you want to vote for something, stick a vote on it. There's only a couple there with votes on them, so I'll move them up the top. So let's take a minute or so to do that. And also, again, as I say, feel free to add any extra items in there if you have something that you have a burning desire to discuss and get a decision on. And I'll post a link in the chat there just in case people don't have a link to it. I guess just in terms of setting a bit of context as well, the reason that we decided to go for this meeting is because we had a thread going around basically asking the question, how do we come to decisions within the AeroGear community? The threads at the moment have been getting a bit unruly, so it's difficult to kind of follow and also get everybody's input and make the decision. And then also in terms of tracking decisions, we're hoping that this will help with that. We do have some ad hoc meetings going on where there may be something that needs a decision to be made, and we have a meeting and we make the decision there. But this is just an effort to kind of, so those meetings have kind of inspired this, but just to open that across the entire community and have kind of something a bit more formal, one place where we can track all of those. So that's kind of the background to this meeting. So hopefully we'll be able to solve some of those problems by having this. So I'm just adding a card at the bottom there. So I'm facilitating this first meeting. I don't know, I set it up and put in the calendar, but it's by no means my meeting. It's a meeting for the community. So I'm reaching out and saying that, you know, if we have some volunteers, we can rotate it. So if anybody is happy to volunteer, stick your name down on that card. Okay, so I think we have a few cards and a few votes, so I'm going to move the top voted one to under discussion. Hopefully we'll hit maybe, let's time box them, I think 5 or 10 minutes at most. We can see how that goes, make an adjustment if we need to. But I think if we can hit these 3 today, that would be good progress. And they're the 3 top voted ones. So the first one then is this one, dog food app discussion. So created by Summers. So I'll get you to talk through this one if you don't mind, Summers.
Sure. So in our retros the last couple of times, we've talked about the fact we don't have a lot of information on how the SDK actually works. Namely, does it? We have the Showcase app, which is really good for, we just click on this and it does a thing, but we don't know how this works when we're off of we don't know if our assumptions and our technologies work when we're off of the kind of demoware that is based around the Showcase app. So we've talked about wanting to dog food the SDKs and the tech and mobile core by building something that's a little bit less trivial than the Showcase app where all of the services are integrated. And that's really as far as we've made it. When I've been thinking about this, I've looked at a forum post, a GitHub post actually a while ago called Build Your Own X, where it discusses how to build different things we've seen in different technologies on in different technologies. So it's like how to build a 3D renderer, and it talks about it in different languages. I was thinking we could do something similar where it's how to build your own X, where how to build your own Instagram, how to build your own Facebook, how to build your own Reddit. And the idea is that what we'll do is we'll make a simple service, we'll have Keep Cloak Protect it, we'll use some other service, integrate them in some interesting use case, build an app with that, and then just say, okay, here's something cool, demo it, do a retrospective on it, write down our feedback, and try to actually implement those changes that we feel like we need back into the core SDK. So that's my 90-second pitch.
So you're proposing a new piece of work, basically, an app.
Yes. We build an app that has, a GUI front end, some sort of back end. We have a script to make it easy to just deploy all of this and have it built in AeroGear so that we can just get that real life. Here is a real use case from beginning to end that someone might try to do on their own. And then when it's done, we just tag everything and be like, okay, that's, a bunch of blog posts, that's a bunch of documentation, that's a bunch of stuff we know. It's not supposed to be, okay, we're going to be maintaining in perpetuity, clones for 80 different social media sites. That's not the purpose of
it. Cool. Can I get thoughts from anybody else on the call around that idea? Do people think it's a good idea? Any feedback?
Personally, I'd rather see the Showcase app become that thing.
Sweet. So where does the Instagram tab on the Showcase app needs to go?
Why does it have to be an Instagram clone or a Twitter clone or a Facebook clone? Why can't it be the Showcase app as our dog food app? Like if the purpose here is to dog food our stuff working together in a mobile app, why not have it be our shop front window app?
So the Showcase app right now isn't really exciting, and if we want to make our Showcase app be this exciting, well, exciting is a strong word, but be more exciting, that can be part of this. But one of the big things that building a second app does is now we have 2 different things that show, okay, we have like validation that ideas work. The problem with just having one Showcase app is we end up coding the SDK to support the Showcase app and not to be something that's more generally applicable. Like, what happens when we start using our app with non-RESTful services, as, for instance? What happens when our SDK has to communicate with something that's not RESTful or not HTTP, or, insert your own thing here.
It feels like a bottomless pit of potential never-ending work. It feels like something that could just suck and suck and suck on time. And I'm struggling to see the real value it adds. I'm struggling to see how we could justify it over the other stuff we want to do.
Okay, so let's say we make an SDK that's really, really good for making the Showcase app, and then someone tries to make an app where they do literally anything else and it falls flat on its face. And we never hear about that because it's, some company doing an evaluation of what we have in the open. We're not testing the SDKs in scenarios outside of the Showcase app. We're not getting developer feedback of this is how using the SDK worked for us from beginning to end. We have the Showcase app, which is showing a whole bunch of features of the SDK, but we don't have anything where we're getting experience developing an app with the SDK. The Showcase app has lots of silos in it where here is, security checks, here is Keycloak, here is metrics, here is, just one off, one off, one off. But that doesn't answer the questions for things like, okay, we have this open question of how should we treat mobile core when we're presenting it to users? Should it be, this is something you interact with up front? Is this something that you interact with through an SDK or through some other code you write? We have no point of reference for that other than Intuition and the Showcase app. And if we make choices on things like that, or on service caching, or on, if we're making technical choices based only on our experience with the Showcase app, then we're coding an SDK to write only apps like the Showcase app. And we're getting no experience outside of that. We're also not getting a lot of experience outside of our own platforms and outside of our own, technologies and opinions. We're not having that good developer feedback that we are utterly lacking. We're going to launch this thing and no one has used it to build an app. No one has used it to build something that's from beginning to end. This is an app that does anything other than show you how to use the SDK. And that is a huge just black box of stuff we don't know. We don't know how this works. We don't know if, when you're sending uploading an attachment with the SDK, that the Keycloak out of the box doesn't time you out after 30 seconds. We don't know that there's not some default or something we've overlooked because we haven't tested it in any real situation, in a situation we've seen outside of the Showcase app. So that's where the value for that is.
Did I hear a mic drop there someplace?
No, that was just the end of my statement of, we have one app, the Showcase app. We don't have another app to validate that the ideas we put into the SDK because of our experiences with the Showcase app work outside of the Showcase app.
Yeah, it's also specific for platform. Let's say Cordova, we use Ionic, which using different TypeScript, and like there's some different technologies in JavaScript. So yeah, it's always specific to not really different business cases, but sometimes different technologies. Like Ionic has a different way of doing things. In some cases, we even use the wrappers for the plugins rather than plugins directly. Same with iOS. I mentioned on chat. It's like currently to build the app, you need to have access to the developer account, which is not everyone has. There's some teams, and then you will need to disable if you want to build it without the push certificates, which are kind of 20 steps, really lots of hassle to do. Once you do that, then you can actually build it, or you can just strip out the push features. So if we kind of be better in this and allow people to quickly build our apps or even provide pre-built version, that would be cool.
So I'm just watching the time, guys. I'd like to ideally keep it to 10 minutes for each discussion if we can. So I think I tried to capture some of the points you were making there, Summer, is basically more in terms of like what are the problems that we're facing. I think to John's point, it would be good to understand how much work would be involved. And I think, yeah, sorry, I have a timer going off in my ear here. Like I think if there was, if you could outline, maybe put together a proposal where you're kind of saying, okay, what's the app going to do? How much time it's going to take to develop? It could be something we could put out to the community as a community initiative. But I think we'd need, like, I think it'd be good to have a little bit more detail around what would be involved and what exactly it is that you're proposing. Yeah, Dave mentioned in the chat there some good use cases for data sync. Yeah, so if there's some ideas around that, I think a good place to start with this one would be a proposal to the AeroGear proposals repo around kind of exactly what it is you're what it is you're kind of outlining here. I hope I've captured what you said.
Yeah, it just sounds like John's opinion on this is no matter what we argue, no matter what we say, he's just going to say, no, we have the Showcase app. Anything else is a waste of time. So
no, absolutely not at all, Summers. Absolutely not at all.
I mean, yeah, I just want, and where I was going with that is it's really important that before we do any work, we get like a thumbs up or a thumbs down from you, just, you and the rest of the powers that be. Because, if I spend a day working on a proposal and mock up some screenshots or something, and then you're like, what the hell did you do? Then, that just feels like exhaustion on my part.
Yeah. No, I'd like to see a proposal. I'd like to see some thoughts on what it actually could be. And in particular, is there something we could do that would take more than one box? Is there a dog food app we could build that would actually have value either to ourselves or to Red Hat in some way? Is it an OpenShift mobile client, or is it an example app that allows, I don't know, enterprises who have social clubs in different parts of the world to register their clubs on an app and allow participants to get involved? Or I'd like to find a use case that not only shows our technologies, but is something rather than just a Twitter clone or Instagram clone, something that would actually be useful as well, that people might actually want to get involved in.
David brought up bringing back Nemo List. If you remember that from a couple of years ago. No, it's a great idea, Dave.
I think there might be some good use cases in there. Yeah, might hit on all the services. Doesn't have to be Nemo List, but it's a good starting point. Yeah.
It had security, it had file storage, it had sync.
I think it might be worth sending an email around to see what idea people have, and then probably, I don't know if we have enough to do a proposal at the moment, to be honest. I think it may be just ask around and see what people think, and then see if we can figure out some good ideas, and then probably start from there.
Yeah, I'm also wondering as we get closer to the community release and we want to start promoting this and maybe even doing some impromptu community training, maybe with some of our consulting friends and things like that, what could we do in building an app like this that would lend itself towards helping to explain and onboard people into AeroGear mobile services? Is there a win there in terms of kind of training collateral as well as for our own dog fooding? I think there's a lot of different angles here, and I don't want to overburden it, but I think if we get the concept right and we hit on the right thing, we can use it for a number of different scenarios. So I'd be interested to see what comes out of it.
Summers, I created a action there. I'll assign it to you, seeing as you seem to be very passionate about this one. So I think, well, it's more about just kicking off the discussion on the mailing list and or creating a proposal to basically get the conversation going, get the information that people are looking for. And we can maybe come back around to this one at a later date once we have a bit more info. How does that sound?
Sounds perfect. Something to, will the community meeting be weekly?
That's the cadence we're going for now. Open to input. We may want it more or less regularly. I just thought weekly was a good place to start, but if we want it more often, we can. Again, that's if someone wants to add a card at some point, if they're feeling it's too often or not often enough, and we can discuss it and adjust as we go. So let's move on to this next one. So timer again. So this one, it was added by myself from a thread that was ongoing in the AeroGear channel. It's been voted by a couple of people, so it initially came from Way. So I might get anybody who has a little bit more knowledge around this one to jump in. Ali, I know you've left some comments on it here as well, so feel free to jump in if you like.
Yeah, so this is actually from a conversation I had with Paul. And he actually brought me to attention that there seems to be some discussion about we hiding the core module in SDKs. So I'm just questioning if that actually is necessary, and also why are we doing that? I think the email thread is probably a lot clearer at this point. I think at this stage, yeah, I think from different, well, the thing is, I think the core module is published as a separate module, so there's no way for us to hide the core. I think if developers want, they can always use the core module and get the mobile core instance from the code. And also, it probably required for them to use the to get the configuration for custom connectors, because at the moment the core module is the one that providing the passing the configurations and return the configurations. So I think from that point of view, I think we should let developers know that how do they how can they access the core module and how can they access the configurations. So yeah, so I think that's really the main point. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts, comments on this one.
What would a world where the core module is hidden look like? Like, what's the end state we're trying to get to if we hide the core module?
Well, the first question is, I don't know how you hide it. Like the core module is published on its own as a separate module. So if anyone import the module, and anyone can pretty much use the mobile core from there anyway.
Let's pretend we, for the sake of this argument, let's pretend we run it through ProGuard, and when you get it, all you get are, here is mobile core, and all of the method names are nonsense.
I don't know. That's my question. I actually don't know what it'll be like if we hide the core. I know that most developers I know, like for most of the services, developer can just deal with the service module directly. So, for example, they can just use auth module.get instance to get an instance of the auth module. They can do service module, secure module.get instance to get a secure module, and then they can just use the whatever function provided by each service module. But in a way that they don't deal with the core module directly from that point of view. But I don't think we kind of try to hide the core module intentionally. It's really just the way that we expose the service modules at the moment. But if developers want to get access to the core module, I don't see a reason that we don't want them to do, or at least they need to get hold of the core module to, for example, get the configurations of the configuration of the custom connector. I think that still needs to be done.
Can I try to summarize where we are? At the moment, we do provide documentation for the core SDK, and we're going to continue to provide that documentation. Is that true?
Sorry, are you saying we don't provide or we provide?
We do.
Yeah, I think we should continue to provide. I don't see a reason that we want to hide it.
Okay, perfect. I'm happy.
Yeah. Initially, there was so many different stuff down there that shouldn't be exposed to end users. So now, let's say, we can just develop it in a way we want it to expose. So we just cleaned it out because it was outdated. Lots of different things about the core that doesn't apply anymore. There was many iterations, especially on Android, how the things shifted down there. But I think at the moment we are in perfect space, and yeah, the documentation misunderstandings are also clear. So really good stuff.
Sounds like we're in agreement. I think maybe I added this one a little while back, and maybe the thread has moved on since. That we are agreeing in terms of the approach.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, perfect. The decision there in the okay, cool. So I'll move that one over to discussed. No actions out of that one, I guess.
Not really just a clarification.
Cool. Yeah, if it's not clear on the thread, maybe someone can take an action to just summarize what we've discussed at the meeting here in terms of the approach that we want to take. It may, as I said, it may already be clear on the thread. It may have moved on since I added it. Cool. So let's move on to the next one and just reset the timer. So Jira projects for AeroGear, one project versus multiple projects, and John added this one, so go to yourself, John.
Yeah, so this is a conversation that I thought had been had and put to bed a while ago, but it would seem that there's not alignment, and I just wanted to bring it back up and open it up to the group and see what people thought on whether we should use AeroGear project for everything, or should we continue with the separate projects for each SDK, or if we think that separate projects are the way to go, should it be separate projects per service? And just get people's thoughts, basically.
Yeah, I'll add that as well. I was under the impression that we were to use AeroGear, so that's the way that I've been doing it for the Service Team 1 board. But I think that it's been done using the separate projects on other boards. So, like, I don't have an objection to either way. Just would prefer if we're all doing it the same way, because I guess it could be confusing for community people, like anyone coming in. Is it just something we want to do a vote on? Okay, Jason says the core are only using AeroGear. So anyone from service team 2, what approach are you guys using?
Just current contribution guide for SDKs pointing to the individual ones. So I don't mind any option, but whatever we agreed on, we can just update it. So it's just work to add a task or something.
I had updated the READMEs anyway to the AeroGear one, because that was my understanding of the approach.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but we kind of mention it also in contribution guide. Yeah, we may actually drop it from contribution guide and use it in README only.
Does anybody have a strong preference either way?
I would prefer just use one Jira project rather than so many different Jira projects. It's hard to find. It's also confusing, and I don't really know if we actually have that many tickets for so many different projects. So yeah, I would prefer to just one Jira project. And plus, for each individual project or individual components, it's probably better to just use GitHub issues if people really want to create an issue against a different against a particular SDK or APB, etc. Rather than using Jira.
Did I hear anything from somebody from Service Team 2 about the approach they're taking? Dave Martin, I think you're on.
I've been defaulting to AeroGear, but I have seen other ones come in from different projects. But I don't mind. As long as everyone's in agreement, it doesn't make much of a difference, really, does it?
Yes, getting the agreement I kind of wanted to get to. Because if half the people think that everything is in AeroGear and they go looking for stuff and don't find it there and don't know to look at the other projects, stuff gets duplicated, stuff gets missed. Different people have different ideas or understandings as to how things should be working. My vote will be for a single Jira project as well. I don't know that we have enough activity to warrant the number of Jira projects we have, but that would lead to the next question. Do we then actually go and close off the other Jira projects, because while they remain open, people will continue to use them?
I would say if we're not using them, we should close them. That would be my view on it. As I say, it's a bit confusing. People might be looking at ones that are... Okay, lots of +1s for closing them. I've mostly heard people saying, let's use one single project, which is AeroGear. Lots of +1s. So if anyone has any objections to using AeroGear and closing up the other projects, now is the time to voice that. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Yeah, countdown, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, okay, decision made. So I don't mind taking that as an action. I might liaise with people generally just about getting things updated, but happy to just oversee it. We might talk about the other ones separately, Summers, if that's okay, because they're not AeroGear related. Yeah, okay. just going to hit stop on the timer there. So we've covered 3. We're right at the top of the 40 minutes. So any questions, comments, feedback from anybody before we close? Thanks everybody for attending, of course, and for participating. Like I said, if there's any feedback on the format, we're hoping to move to Google Hangouts. I'm just waiting on some information from Matthias about that. So we might not be using the Blue Jeans format going forward and use Google Hangouts. If anybody knows anything about that, just touch base with me. Maybe Summers or Passos might know if there's an email there. But other than that, I think we'll close, and thanks everybody.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.